Little Hands, Big Attitude. Book 2, Little Steps. Big Changes, Chapter 11. Trouble in the Alternate Present. Maddie shut her eyes tightly to try and adjust her eyes a bit to the darkness. One moment, she and Sonic were following his counterpart through a series of halls in some sort of military facility, searching for a pleading little voice, and the next, the lights had mysteriously gone out.
Abnormality detected in the electrical system. Abnormality detected in the electrical system.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sonic muttered, and then he saw his counterpart rush into the laboratory after taking advantage of the darkness. They followed. The scientists were complaining about the blackout and tried to get their monitors back online. Sonic saw his counterpart smash through a large capsule in the center, then duck into a corner with another small figure in his arms.
Where'd they go?
The other Sonic hushed the little figure as she tried to say his name, but then a second, even smaller figure began to chatter excitedly and grabbed onto his neck.
Over there.
Let's go!
The other Sonic hissed, handing the little creature to the second, who nodded in agreement, and then they hurried back out of the room.
I have a feeling we gotta see this jailbreak through Mom.
Sonic assured, and he and Maddie hurried after the pair. It was easier to keep up with him now as his little friend couldn't run as fast as he could, and he wasn't about to leave her behind.
Geez, Sonic, how did you turn off all the electricity?
I didn't do it, Cream. I guess it just happened.
Maybe it's because you bring good luck wherever you go.
You may be right.
Commander Walters certainly wouldn't think so.
And then, all at once, the lights came back on with a vengeance.
Yikes, it singed my corneas. I'm blind.
Maddie would have laughed at her son, but she was feeling the same sentiment. Not to mention the lights being on net, the others were visible now. The cameras all turned to face them. There was no hiding from the scientists now.
I shouldn't have said anything. I must be a jinx.
This isn't your fault.
They all looked up as the tops of the cameras then opened, and little weapons turrets emerged from them and aimed at the pair.
Okay, Cream, hang on.
The two shot forward, running from lasers being fired at them, and Sonic and Maddie followed. There had to be a reason why Obsidian was showing them this. Maybe this was what he feared would happen if Gunn got a hold of them, which honestly seemed like a fair assumption to Maddie. The two fleeing figures dodged the lasers, and Sonic released Cream's hand, telling her to run while he jumped onto one of the turrets. He punched the camera, cleaned off its base, and then launched to another, grabbing it and turning it to fire the lasers, not at the rabbit, but at the rest of the cameras down the hall.
Keep running!
Cream obeyed, holding the other little creature close to her chest.
Area D2 lockdown in progress. Area D2 lockdown in progress.
Quarantine doors were coming down from the ceiling, closing off sections of the hall.
The door, we can't make it out.
The other Sonic gasped, and then zipped down, scooping the little rabbit up into his arms and ducking under the door. Sonic gasped as well, his feet skidding on the floor as he tried not to run into the door. It slammed shut against the floor, but Sonic wasn't going to stop in time. He braced for impact, and then he phased right through it.
Sonic?
Maddie ran to the door and tried to feel it for a second, and then she too passed through it to the other side, where her son was on the floor.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's go.
Sonic reassured, pulling himself back up to his feet. Once more, they were on the move, but as they ran to catch up with the other two, they saw random cameras lying on the ground, with small triangular shapes sticking out of them. Not Sonic's handiwork, but almost like tiny paper airplanes that had sliced into the metal.
Whoa. Looks like they got help from the outside.
Facility lockdown in progress. Facility lockdown in world.
The lights went out once more, but the cameras were still active and firing around sporadically. Walls, the ceiling, the floor, everywhere was getting hit, even when there was nothing to shoot at. Just ahead of them, they saw the pair starting up a staircase.
Great! I needed some cardio in my workout.
They ran up the stairs after them, but Maddie huffed as she saw her son getting ahead of her.
Sonic, wait I.
She gasped as one of the lasers came up from below, slicing part of the stairway. She wobbled on the edge and then caught herself, looking back at her son above her and across the crevice.
Mom!
Sonic paused, looking back and forth between her and the others, continuing up the crumbling staircase. Maddie looked at the space between them and then furrowed her brows. This was all an illusion, so she had to hope that if she missed, she wouldn't actually fall all the way back to the floor. She then ran forward and jumped. Her fingers grasped onto the edge of the step above her, and she gave a sigh of relief as it didn't crumble underneath her weight. Sonic held tightly with one hand onto the remaining bits of railing, and the other he offered to her.
Come on, Mom, you can do it.
Maddie dared to release with one hand and grabbed down to Sonic's, who grunted as he helped to pull her up onto the steps.
Thanks, kiddo.
They looked up at the other two, who had reached the top and were now resting. It appeared that the worst was behind them. Then the other Sonic punched a hole through the wall, and they disappeared into a bright light outside.
Now what?
Sonic hummed, leaning back against the wall before being reminded that they could pass through them as he started to phase through it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Sonic.
Maddie grabbed Sonic's hand and tried to pull him back in, but then Sonic's other hand lifted up in a pausing motion. He wanted her to follow him through. Maddie released his hand and then crawled through alongside him. The other side of the wall wasn't outside of this compound. It was another place. The other Sonic and the little rabbit were gone, replaced by its arc, dismal hallway. Both of them crawled through, and then got up to their feet. Broken walls of stone and torn tapestry surrounded them. As Maddie looked around and listened, she heard a familiar cry.
Obsidian.
Come on, Mom.
Sonic grabbed her hand, and they were off running down a hall again.
Hold on, Abby. We're coming.
They ran, and the deeper into this new area, the more voices they heard. They turned a corner, and Maddie was so used to people just being ghostly and non-corporal that when she made physical contact into the man standing in front of her, she was taken by surprise when she bounced off him. The man caught her from hitting the floor, pulling her back up onto her feet.
Nice to see you again, Mrs. Wachowski.
Maddie looked back, and she recognized the man as one of the other two officers that had been with Commander Walters.
You.
Look, I didn't agree to do anything about hurting you or your kids. I was just trying to follow orders. But now, I need your help.
Oh, really? Do what exactly?
The commander and my colleague are both trapped by debris in one of the rooms, and it's gonna take more than one person to move some of it. Unless, of course, that one person is your oldest. I think that kid could move an entire freight train out of the way with one hand.
Fine, but then you guys had better start explaining some things.
Thank you. They're this way. I'm Abe. Abraham Towers III, to be exact.
Nice to meet you, Abe.
How many rooms are in this place?
Tails felt like he and Knuckles had spent hours walking in circles, not getting any closer to their little brother's cries. He had to admit, it was feeling rather hopeless.
I hate hearing him. Hearing him cry and not being able to find and help him?
He paused to look at one of the torn tapestries on the wall, marking with a crest that sort of resembled a bird. It has to be something of significance. Then he heard other voices coming from down another hall to their right, some of which were familiar.
Is that Sonic?
Knuckles led the charge down the hall.
Sonic. Sonic, is that you?
Knuckles!
They turned as the hall curved, and were relieved to see their brother and mother both standing there, unharmed.
Mom?
Tails cried, running up into her arms and hugging her tightly.
Hey, baby.
Natty cooed, putting one arm around him and the other around Knuckles, who returned the gesture.
Thank goodness. Are you both okay?
Yes, ma'am. I'm just so glad to see you.
Me too, Tails.
Can we save the sentimental affections for later, please?
Natty glared at Commander Walters on the other side of the wall of debris.
Well, if you hadn't shot my boys, we wouldn't be in this mess.
Oh, sorry, sir, but I'm with her on this one. I'm not so sure tranquilizing them and snatching the baby from them was the smartest move.
Obviously. If you think we can't keep our powers under control as teens, then what did you think was going to happen when you got Obsidian upset?
Granted, we didn't know he had this much power at such a young age. But the point still stands.
And speaking of what stands, now that we have your oldest here.
Knuckles, can you help get this debris out of here?
You wish to save those who trapped us here in the first place.
As much as it pains me to agree with Mom on this one, it is the right thing to do.
Very well, but I will not take joy in it.
That's not a problem, big guy.
Knuckles walked over to the debris and began to pull pieces away like a game of jigsaw, steel beams and concrete slabs being lifted and set aside until the other two could climb out and into the hallway.
There. You have been released from your makeshift prison.
The two officers didn't even give the echidna a look, much less a thank you, but the third one did.
I appreciate you putting things aside for a moment to do that.
You are welcome. We must find Obsidian and rescue him from this place.
Agreed. I hate hearing him cry like this. And this time, no tranquilizer darts?
Considering we lost our weapons the moment we arrived here, that shouldn't be an issue.
Tails hoped that Obsidian would let them find him now. If he was actively trying to keep them from reaching him, that would certainly explain why they couldn't seem to find him.
Obby, it's us, your family. Plus a couple of doofuses, but they won't hurt you again, I promise.
Tails found to his curiosity that finally, the cries were getting louder. They were getting closer. He wished he had some device that could pinpoint the source of the sound, so they could at least know which halls and doors to take. Then they heard voices. Some whispers down the corridor.
Humanity isn't just jealous of your power, they fear it. They'll only use this incident as an excuse to hunt you down. Lol. It's futile. The world will betray you. Why fight for those who will persecute you later?
Hello? Who's there?
But there was no answer. The hall was quiet again, aside from the soft cries of a child, now shifting in tone. Sonic's ears pricked.
Do you hear that? He's hurt.
They picked up the pace, hurrying, and the cries getting louder. Other sounds were coming in now too. The buzzing of machinery, a collective chatter of voices, and a light was shining from ahead. They turned the corner and found one wall was lined with massive windows. And when they looked through the windows, Tails' heart sunk into his stomach.
Obsidian!
Kaya gripped the side of the truck's bed as Tom drove back towards the house. She could feel the chaos energy more clearly the closer they got to it. There were flickers of both negative and positive chaos energy, but she had a feeling it was due to the fact that Sonic and Knuckles were also inside of the dreamscape. They were the ones giving off the positive charges, and Obsidian the negative. Together, both charges were clashing, forming the lightning that pulsed on the edges of the perimeter like a storm cloud. She hopped out of the back before Tom had even come to a full stop, her feet gripping the gravel as she walked towards the house. Indeed, the entire house was enveloped with the energy, pausing and shifting. She barely acknowledged the officers standing outside, aiming their weapons at her.
I wouldn't remember what happened the last time you guys threatened an alien.
The men's weapons slowly lowered. Kaya walked towards the cloud, reaching a hand out towards it. She hadn't interacted with this much chaos energy at one time, in a long time. Not since before the echidna stole her emeralds from her. The edges of it swirled outwards to her fingers, wrapping around them like vines of purple mist. Sixy's dat.
Do you think you can get inside?
I can. Sit tight, Sheriff Wachowski.
She then pressed against the wall, and the mist began to pull back a little to let her slide into it. She gave a smile. It was working. The moment she was fully enclosed in the mist, she felt the energies merging with hers, shifting her form a bit. Then she heard voices, whispers from all over, to focus all the noise, tried to identify where exactly in all of the murky surroundings Obsidian and the others were. She closed her eyes, pulling the energy in towards her.
I'm here, little one. I want to help you, but I need you to help me first. What is troubling you?
There was at first no response, just the whispering chatter of a million different words like timelines. Kaya's eyes widened. Lol.
Solaris.
Do not utter that name. Do not remind me of that name.
I see.
I don't want to hurt anymore.
Then show them, little one. Show them what hurts you. Let them help you.
They will not like what they see.
From what I have seen in my time here, little one, no human ever does.